All right, friends, here it is, the video you've been waiting for, how I make my sunscreen base and how I turn it into my own color matched foundation. So here's a quick little video of me applying it. As you can see, it's a really nice match to my skin tone. This one was actually a tiny bit light for my skin. I think I did end up adding a tiny bit more pigment to it. I'm going to show you how to make it. So first we're going to make our sunscreen base. So I'm going to use sweet almond oil here. You can also use grapeseed oil if sweet almond oil causes allergic reactions to you. So I think I did 4 tablespoons of sweet almond oil. And then I go ahead and add some shea butter. And shea butter is one of our solid butters here. And I'm going to do a couple of tablespoons of the shea butter. So in this video, I used a little bit of cocoa butter. I'm gonna not recommend that because it is a comedogenic butter, so it can cause some pore clogging for some people. In your case, you're probably going to want to use some beeswax instead. As you can see, I use about a tablespoon of beeswax. So what I would do here is do 2 tablespoons of beeswax and omit the cocoa butter. I add some jojoba oil. And again, I'm going to post the full ingredients list here on the post, just so you guys know exactly what goes in there. And again, I'm going to omit the cocoa butter and instead use a little bit more beeswax. So I did edit this a little bit, but it does take quite a bit while for the beeswax to melt. How I'm doing this is on a double boiler. I did take my bowl and put it right onto the hot plate, but you don't want to do that for too long. You don't want to scorch your oils. So once everything is melted, the beeswax pellets are going to be last. You are going to add some of your more heat sensitive oils that you don't want to be heating for a long time. So in this case, that's my raspberry leaf oil. And I use some carrot seed oil, about 10 drops of that. These both, the raspberry seed oil and the carrot seed oil, are both really great at preventing free radical damage, which is great for preventing sun damage. So they're a great ingredient to use in your sunscreen and to use on your skin year round. Carrot seed oil, you do want to be cautious if you are pregnant or expecting to be pregnant, as carrot seed oil is high in vitamin A. So always just use caution when using carrot seed oil every single day. So once it's nice and melted, I'm going to add my zinc oxide. Now the nice thing about this recipe is we can go ahead and use the cheaper zinc oxide because it doesn't matter that it's going to leave our skin white because we're going to be making a foundation out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and add zinc oxide. Now right here I'm using tablespoons, but you typically want to add about 10% of the weight of your ingredients in zinc oxide. So if everything weighs about 100 grams, then you would use about 10 grams of zinc oxide. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that in. Zinc oxide can be a little bit tricky. It will get gritty and form along the bottom. So that's why you see me kind of scraping the side of the bowl with the back of my spoon to try to blend out some of those little lumps. We want to get as many of those little lumps blended out as possible. It's going to give us a much nicer finished product. This is one of those things where patience really is key. So one thing that I did there was I put a little bit in the fridge so that I could test the consistency. This is an important step because if it's too thick, then when you go and add your titanium dioxide to it, it will be really hard to apply. It will go on really like flaky and cakey. So I went and put that in the fridge just so I could test to see that it has a nice creamy consistency. And you can always adjust, even if it completely cools and you're not happy with it, if it's too runny or if it's too cakey, you can always go and adjust, reheat it and add a little bit more oil or a little bit more solid products like the shea butters to adjust it to your liking. So what I've done here is I've taken a small amount out, and this is what I'm going to do to make my sunscreen, or my foundation with. So if you are starting with already having made your sunscreen, then you just take a scoop and heat it up and then start from this point. So what I just added there is titanium dioxide. This is really going to make it quite white. And again, titanium dioxide, like zinc oxide, is going to really want to cake up. So that's why you'll see me constantly kind of grinding it against the outside of the bowl with the back of the spoon. In a little while, I'm going to start using the 2-spoon method to grind out the lumps, and you're going to see what that looks like. It's very important to get those lumps out. If you have a big lump of titanium dioxide, when you go to put it on your face, it's going to leave a giant white streak, and it's just really not a desirable effect. So as you can see, I spent a really long time grinding out the lumps, and I actually probably spend even more time than what you see here because I edited it out a lot and I also sped this up. There's my second spoon, so I pick 2 spoons that fit nicely into each other so I can easily grind out any lumps that are in there. One thing that I would like to explain about our sunscreen is that it's not been tested for its SPF rating. We do add iron oxides, and those could potentially decrease the effectiveness of the zinc oxide and the titanium dioxide. There's no way of knowing that without getting it tested. Getting it tested is a very expensive process. So please do use your sun smarts when wearing DIY recipes like this. So here's a good little visual of the titanium dioxide and the zinc oxide together. And then I go ahead and I put a little bit of the just plain sunscreen base, which just has zinc oxide. So as you can see, that titanium dioxide really increases the opacity. So here I am again grinding out some of those lumps. So as I was saying, you're going to want to use your sun smarts. So if you are headed to Mexico and you're going to be in the sun all the time, or if you are going to spend an entire day at the beach, you're going to want to go and buy a proper mineral-based sunscreen that has been SPF tested and has a good like 50 SPF rating. When you're wearing this, it's more as an everyday sunscreen for your face or a backup sunscreen. So you're going to want to also avoid sunshine and wear a hat, etc. So now that I have my base made, I am going to go ahead and start adding my tint. So what I'm using here are iron oxides, and I have a brown, a yellow, and a red. So typically people have pink undertones or they have yellow undertones. I have yellow undertones, so I'm not going to be touching that pink color. But if you are a redhead or somebody with really fair skin, chances are you're going to have some pink undertones. I have a little bit of Greek background, so I've got those reddy undertones yellow undertones in my skin. So the first one that I'm adding is brown, and I'm going to add that to try to get a good base color. Again, you're going to see me doing a lot of this grinding out this color. You don't want lumps of the pigment in there, or you're going to have big streaks in your foundation. So this is not a quick and easy process. This is going to take you probably an hour start to finish, and that's after you've made your sunscreen base. I cannot stress the importance of going slowly with these colors. You don't want to add in a bunch at a time and end up with lumps in it. So here you can see I've gotten a little bit of a neutral shade, so I'm going in and adding some of my yellow tint to that just to color match my skin. This is still way too light. I don't know what I was even doing here checking that. We need to add a lot more color. I actually did a much bigger batch here than I normally would. So what I found with this batch was I required obviously a lot more of the iron oxide tints, and I had to keep retinting and adding more and more until I got to my desired color. As you can see there in the spoon, I'm actually getting pretty close, but now I'm going to have to mix that in with the rest of my batch, and I'm going to have to increase the amount of color that I have in there. One nice thing about this recipe is once you are done making your foundation, you're going to mix the rest of your foundation base back into your sunscreen. At least that's what I do. So then what you end up with is a higher SPF because of the zinc or the titanium dioxide in your sunscreen. It's also a little bit tinted, so it's not going to show up bright white on your skin. Now I know earlier I was talking about using the cheaper zinc oxide. What I mean by that is at PickEco we have 3 types of zinc oxide. We have a plain zinc oxide, which is only about $3 per 100 grams. It's really affordable. And then we have what's called Z-coat zinc oxide. So if you want to make yourself a oil-based or water-based sunscreen, we have a water immersible zinc oxide that's Z-coated and a oil immersible zinc oxide that's Z-coated. And what that does is they do not show up as bright white on your skin. So as you can see, I'm nowhere near close to having enough tint in there. So I'm going to go ahead and add a fair bit more. That's the nice thing, is you just keep adding tint until you get your desired color. I always like to add a little bit at a time until I get the color that I'm looking for. If you add too much, you can fix that. What I would typically do is get another bowl and add some of this base into some more of your regular white, and then go again until you get your right consistency, right coloring. So it does look like I'm getting pretty close here. And again, I'm going to keep using this 2-spoon method to grind out any of the little lumps, because you don't want that tint coming out in big streaks. But we are still too light. This would be a great shade for me in the winter, but in the summer when I have a little bit more color on my skin, it's not quite going to do the trick. This is the nice thing about making it yourself, is you just keep going until you get a color that you think is perfect for your skin, and everybody is different. So we are adding our last little bit of color to this mix and grinding it back out, and here we go. Let's check this color, and I think we are getting pretty close. As you can see, it's blending quite nicely into my skin, and it's still a little bit light. I think we do add a tiny bit more color to it. The nice thing about this being your foundation is that most people don't wear enough sunscreen. In this case, if you want that good coverage, you are going to be putting an ample amount on, which is going to keep your skin nice and protected from the sun. All right, I think we have our shade perfected. We're looking pretty happy with those results. Perfect. So now all there is left to do is again ensure that it is completely mixed, and we are going to add it to a little makeup pot. We have ones that you can buy at PickEco, or if you have one that was previously used for something else, that works as well. So what I have done, and I did not show it here, I'm so sorry, but I added that the rest of what I didn't put in that little pot back into my main sunscreen mix. Here you go. You can see me doing that here. So I'm just adding that back into my sunscreen, and that's going to give me a tinted sunscreen. It's not going to be as tinted or as opaque as the foundation, but it's going to be a lot better than a bright white sunscreen on my skin. As you can see, it blends in really nicely, and it's already color matched to my face, which is fantastic. So again, I'm just grinding out some of the little lumps there, and then I'm going to pour this into a container for future use. The nice thing is when I do run out of my foundation, which I typically do before I run out of sunscreen, all I have to do is grab a little scoop of this out, put it in one of those glass bowls, warm it up, and then I can just add some more titanium dioxide and some more of the iron oxide tints to the mix and make myself another batch, which I do every couple of months. Now it is important that you have a set of utensils that you use for this purpose. Titanium dioxide is actually food grade, but zinc oxide is not something that you want to consume or eat. And here we go with our finished product. I believe I took this video the next day, and there we go. Covers up some of the redness that I have on my face, covers the under eye circles quite nicely, also protects me from the sun. Again, we do not know the SPF rating of this because it is a homemade product. I typically go over and use the sorry, I use the Jane Iredale powder to set, and that also has more SPF. I'm just going over my lip here just to show you the type of coverage that we have here. Obviously that's not something I would normally do, but I just want to show you just how the coverage is. And you can go even higher coverage by adding more of the titanium dioxide. The more titanium dioxide, the whiter that will be, and then you just add your base to it. Again, blending that out because that's not a look that I typically go for. Here I'm going to show you how this covers my tattoo. Again, it's about a light to medium coverage, which is what I prefer. But as you can see, it really does its job. So there we have it. That is how I make my sunscreen base and how I make my homemade foundation. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I really enjoyed showing you guys how to make sunscreen base as well as foundation.